yeah, I'll like one of the things I'd say for that is like I think when I've seen people try to do not that, it involves like copious amounts of play testing,
Mm,
like A/B testing, all those kind of things. Where now you're kind of getting to that, more classic software engineering tech thing where you're like glasses up, I have a problem to solve. Like
right.
how am I, like you're doing engineering and like psychological evaluations almost, like it's like not what they say but like where I feel it goes. And I think it lends itself well to the classic like loot box money
R-
sucking kind of environment, which I think can be very financially lucrative
mhm.
because it does like there's no part where you have to be like, oh yeah, is this game fun anymore? You've got a metric, which is how much money am I getting out of this
Right.
and how can I maximize that? And it really deviates from, is this an enjoyable experience?
Hmm.
I think that's almost the logical conclusion of doing that, is that you kind of tend to end up going down that path.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and
I thi-
before I get too like morally high horsey about it, I feel like there is, people need to eat and
Sure.
get some kind of financial reward from the game. So like I'll not try to, demonize it too
Hmm.
hard. But like obviously there are places in society where that's being taken like way too far. So
Well, I
yeah.
it's not to like throw any shade against like the the I don't know, the door modeler for some AAA game company, but like you know if your entire position is modeling the doors for some massive RPG, right? Like your position is so diluted that you don't even know what the full game is. But
I
like
think
people have to pay their bills.
I think a lot of it comes down to, are you working for passion or are you
Mm,
working for money?
right.
And if you're making an indie game, you could be trying to aim for money, but if you don't believe in the product and you don't find it fun, how can you assume that anyone else will?
Right. Right.
And I think there's always the fine line of straddling of making yourself happy
Mm,
versus making your player base happy, because you can quite quickly develop a player base that you never intended to.
mm-hmm.
I point to media like My Little Pony and various other things.
Uh-huh.
Um, but you can very much quickly go into a route that you didn't expect, and
Mhm,
it's up to you to figure out whether you really enjoy it or you really don't.
mhm,
So I think, at least with my art, I ended up in watercolors,
mm,
despite that not being my preference in
mm,
terms of what I like to consume. But it's a process that I found easier, and it seemed to resonate with different crowds, and that created a connection with an audience that I didn't quite expect to connect with.
mhm,
So a lot of this entire act of being an indie dev is a balancing act between what you want to do
mm.
and what your audience wants you to do and what you need to do to be financially responsible. And
Sure.
it's always a struggle to find the center of that triangle.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
important to have a vision, but you can't. Ultimately, you are producing a product,
Hmm.
and it's important to have a vision. Like, you see a lot of games where they have a vision initially, and then they listen too much to feedback and just completely diverge. And sometimes that works, but other times you end up trying to create something that appeals to everybody, and by doing so, it doesn't appeal to anyone because it's such a watered down experience that nobody is really connecting to it because you've tried to please everyone with it.
I mean, guess the way to think about it is games are a conversation.
Mm.
You're trying to
Mm.
say something when you make a game. You're trying to send across a message. You're trying to send across a feeling.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that's very hard if you don't know what you're trying to send across.
Mm-hmm.
And when an audience complains or says something about your message, it's not necessarily that your message is wrong. The audience doesn't quite have the same scope to what you're saying, what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you need to be able to pick out, say, there is something wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
What they're suggesting may not be the right fix, but they are right that something's wrong here.
Right.
How do I either enhance my message so it's clearer and that people start to resonate with what I'm saying, or is it a message that I need to send out?
Right.
And you're always stuck between that question. You get better at dealing with this as you sort of get more experience and you sort of understand where you want to be. And that's the crux of the entire creative process behind game dev or any media, really. So I guess it's the audience is right about something. They may not be right about what they think they're right about. And you really need to stay true to what you want to do, at least in this space.
Yeah, I'm sure you've both seen this image before. The problem solving is an art form not fully appreciated by some.
Yes.
So for anyone who
Yeah.
doesn't know about it, it's that picture of trying to explain what a swing is, and different stakeholders are going to have different ideas and different approaches on how you would solve it. And the user, they just wanted a simple tire swing, but the user's generally not able to explain. Players and users are able to explain a problem, but they aren't really great at explaining the solution to the problem. They can say a system is broken, but not necessarily how you're going to go about fixing it.
Yeah. So like the classic one is a really good description of what you encountered and what you expected is amazing, because then, yeah, like the person on the other end can take that and go, okay, cool. Like at least this part is objective and we can work with that. But yeah, so much of everything we do is like, I don't know, yeah, fundamentally emotional, and not in the negative sense, but like irrational creatures of like, you know, we're not like logical, like fundamentally human beings. We have feelings and we miss things or misread stuff and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a very interesting challenge to like kind of, yeah, match expectations, I guess, for what people have. And sometimes you just can't. You'll get a negative Steam review because it's like, I really wish there was like a, you know, a fishing game in this. Like, you know, like it's a very arbitrary example, but I think people will get what I mean, right? Like it's like, yeah, you can't please everybody. And like, yeah, like you're saying, you probably shouldn't try to.